Hi there and welcome back to the channel. Over the last couple of weeks I have been sharing some of my online classes with you. So a couple of weeks ago I went through some of my still life photography classes. Last week I went through some of my food photography classes. So this week I thought I would jump in and have a little look at my macro photography classes. I've also got some floral classes in there too, if that's something that you want to go into that extends beyond the macro class. So let's go and have a little look. So if you jump onto my website and go to the online classes portal, you'll actually find that there is a group of macro and florals in here. So there's a world in miniature, which is quite an extensive macro photography class. There's also the secret life of fruit, where I take a macro look at fruit in perhaps an entirely new way from what you used to. Then of course there's also blossoms and buds and fine art florals, which is kind of a mix between still life and macro photography. So let's jump in and have a little look at a world in miniature so you can see what goes on in the classes. Of course, if you click on the links from my website, it takes you straight into the class page and it gives you a little bit of information and in-depth details on what you can expect to find in the class. So there's just a little bit more about you. There's some bonus materials. There is the course curriculum and so forth. So there's over 3 hours of video content. So let's have a look at the class itself. As you've come to expect, there will be the welcome part. So there's stuff on camera and gears and lenses. I also go into Lensbaby lenses, which are fabulous for macro photography. There's some information on depth of field, plane of focus, lighting options, bonus resources. Everybody loves the bonus. There is some ebooks. So there's a couple of different ebooks in there, including my brand new The Magic of Macro 2026 version, which has been completely redone, re-edited, new information, new photos, new technical stuff, lots and lots of diagrams and things like that. So that's another one that is an absolute bonus. Then I break it down into Let's Get Out in Nature, where we go through working with water drops, product photography, focus stacking, all sorts of things. Then we look at minimalism and working with bugs as well. So they're all the different topics that I have in there. So if you want to learn focus stacking, I go through and show you how to focus stack, how to put the video together, etc. There is a thing here on product photography. So if you want to learn more on working with product photography from a macro standpoint, that's there as well. There's advanced water drops, so you can create your own water drops, or you can catch dew out in nature. I look into minimalist macro photography, so there's another fun aspect to have a look at, and working with bugs. Now, I don't work with bugs a lot, and I guess no sort of macro class would be complete without it. So I have done a little bit there on working with bugs, not that I do it myself per se. Each one, of course, has got a video, whether it's out in the field or in the studio, how I set it up and all the rest of it. There is some videos on editing. There is lots of different product shoots. I go through, for instance, settings and gear that I use for doing a red wine shoot. So you can go through and you can take any of these sparks, as I call them, and you can apply that to anything else. If there's a particular way you like it lit or anything like that, then you can learn from there. So I have put together a little behind the scenes a prompt or a project. I go into what settings and gear I use, and then I also go through and show the images that I took as well. And these are just images that I took out in the backyard using various different macro lenses. So that's it for this one. I did have another macro class, which was the Magic of Macro, which has been archived, but if you had bought that previously, you can still access that. But this is the new updated version of the macro class. There's also Blossoms and Buds and Fine Art Florals, which sort of blur the line between still life photography and macro, and you could apply any of these to macro. Again, go through, there's bonus material, there is various different flowers that I go through. So I spend a week exploring poppies or peonies, gerbras, hydrangeas, things like that. And I go through and shoot it in the studio. I explain why I used certain gear and what the settings were. I go through and I do the Lightroom edit as well as a Photoshop edit or adding textures on various images. So you will have both a Lightroom and a Photoshop edit on some of these classes. On the Fine Art Florals, again, really blurring the line between macro and still life photography. Again, everything that you would expect. There's behind the scenes setup. I go through setting up the lights. Predominantly this particular class is done with studio strobes or constant LED lights, but you could use it with natural light as well. These are really just to give you the tools to go out and create the images that you're after. So that's it for this week's video. I will pop back in next week and I will give you a little bit more of a tour of some of my online classes. And yes, the list is quite extensive. So it doesn't matter whether you're into still life photography, food photography, macro photography, or if you want to play with something a little more creative in Photoshop, then jump in next week and I'm going to show you some of my mixer brush classes. So that's it. Again, thank you for purchasing this class. If you have done so, why not go and check out some of the other ones? Put a link down below if you've done any of the classes and what you really liked about it. That's it from me, and I will see you next week. Bye.